Welcome back, Las Cruces, to the Las Cruces Small Business Podcast. I am your host, your moderator, your professional geek, Carlos Pato from Nexus Media Group. And today I have an awesome guest. His name is Joe Villanueva. He has an awesome business in town, but this podcast is built to showcase small businesses like Joe's in Las Cruces that you would sit there and go, I had no idea I had these services available to me in Las Cruces. So Joe, welcome, and can you please just tell us about yourself and your business?
Sure, and yeah, thanks Carlos for inviting me on here to talk a little bit about what I do. I sure appreciate you and the ways you've helped me in the past, and yeah, hope to help others as well. So yeah, I've been in Las Cruces. My family has been here for about 8 years. We moved down from Albuquerque. And I started in El Paso in IT consulting and software development, and kind of drifted into more the management side of consulting. So I started Edifiers Consulting, my company, about 3 years ago, and been helping small, medium-sized companies ever since.
Awesome.
So you asked what I do,
Yep.
what Edifiers does. You know, one of the common patterns that I've run across in the last few years is kind of these Band-Aid answers to deeper questions, deeper problems that teams and companies deal with. We live in a very rapidly changing world. More so, it affects way more industries than just IT related fields. Everybody has to think about ransomware attacks and, changing technologies and internet and cloud computing, and, personnel your staff is so transient these days with the younger generations, especially. Things like COVID that just happened, like it feels like from every angle, change is always with us. And so it makes a lot of business leaders and employees pretty nervous. So what I've enjoyed doing is coming alongside companies and leaders as a partner, and bring perspective, bring kind of that holistic approach to how do we structure ourselves to accommodate and kind of expect change to happen, anticipate it, and have an operation that is equipped to handle it. So that's, in a nutshell, it's my best shot.
Awesome. Thanks. Okay. So you started Edifiers, right? And you're building this business, and you have clients. And so, and I always look at the competition part of it, going, okay, so we have other individuals that offer your services as well. So one of the things that I always like to look at is going, what sets you apart from the competition, from anybody else that offers your services? What makes you unique to your business?
Well, it's a very relational business. And so, I would say my competition in management consulting here is the big firms like Ernst & Young and Accenture and Baines & Company that you find in these bigger metropolises. Excuse me. And, they're expensive. And I've seen them come in, they fly them in from out of town, from Colorado or New York, and they do, this grand analysis and presentation, and they don't always just leave, but that's kind of the pattern and kind of the stereotype of consulting in general is you told us what we already knew and it was expensive. So I think, I differentiate on price there. On that side, when when you think of, the expertise that Edifiers provides, I'm competing. It's the same type of thing you'd find with one of the big four firms in a bigger city. On the other side, can I find what I need for cheaper? I'm a small business, medium-sized business here in El Paso, Las Cruces. I don't really need an Accenture. But why would we look for outside help like that? And I think I never intend to just kind of latch on and stay with a client for very long. I started my career as a personal trainer in Albuquerque, and I would always tell my clients the same thing I tell them now. You need to plan, like as we start, for my exit. You need to plan on doing this yourself. That's what I'm going to try to get you into shape, to the point where the new things that you're learning here, you can maintain them yourself on, in your leadership style and within your own team. So I'm kind of a catalyst in that sense. I don't try to just come in and be an extra expense. I mean, that's a good way to go out of business. My whole goal is to mobilize teams and to get them self-sufficient. So I think my approach in that way is probably distinct and um, probably one of my goals is to break that stereotype of consultants that are kind of expensive and telling you what you already knew. We want to find new things and build new capabilities in our clients' work environments, and then get out and give them room to move.
That is awesome. So, and I think it's amazing too, because you're not creating a crutch for that company to constantly rely on you. It is that you found the issue, you've solved that problem. Now let's move forward. Learn how to walk again on your own, or in your case, train on your own. Build yourself up, continue that strength building. That is fantastic. I love that. Absolutely love that. Okay, so in my line of business, as a web developer, I've always run into where everybody thinks Google's going to find me instantly, right? And it's a common misconception. So, and I always like to ask my guests, what is a common misconception about your business?
I would say, I mean, in addition to the typical stereotype about consultants being expensive, telling us what we already knew, I would say, everybody sells something. And that's not a bad statement, but that's what business is. If you have something valuable, you have to pitch it. You have to make it known what you do. And the people that have that need will work with you. So one of the things, the misconceptions of consulting that I've seen is people approach an outside contractor or consultant thinking that they know the right question. And what I've run into a lot is, there's an assumption baked into the engagement that the answers to our problems are going to come in the form of a new piece of technology, a new software product. It's kind of framed in this, do we make it or buy it thing? And so I kind of come in with first a lot of questions, because I need to discern that why behind why did you reach out to me? What are you really trying to do through X, Y, and Z? Because with the world that we live in, you might need to swap one solution for another, try something that didn't quite work, experiment with something else. But if we're not locked into the right outcomes, the right questions that are going to lead to the best outcomes, it really makes you kind of inflexible. And you start looking at guys like me, contractors, as just outside vendors providing, a standard kind of commoditized service, whether it's software development, whether it's project management. There's all kinds of, ways that people think they already know the right question to get what they need. And a lot of times they do. People, business leaders are where they are because they've figured a lot of stuff out, and they're smart. I think, having grown up, in this internet age, and I came out of college in 2006, and right after that we had the stock market crash. And so this whole transient work environment where the work is getting more and more lucid and fluid, where contract labor is kind of the name of the game now. And, everything's a gig or a job, and, in a lot of ways. The challenge is how do we know what's not going to change, and how do we kind of really account for the need for stability and predictability in our operation, in our team, but also account for this constant need to adapt to change and be prepared to adapt to change. And that is really challenging. So to think that, there's a quick fix like technology that can address that, it just, often I just see what's often left behind is the human aspect of change and transformation. How things relate to each other, technology, people. A lot of times you'll have great technology, great people, really smart people. You'll have lots of data, but the process isn't there. And so just having those different angles that we look at the business through those different lenses and be able to paint a fuller picture of where the challenges are and what to do first. There's a lot of misconceptions that come to light in that conversation.
Great. So, and so through hearing you speak, especially being able to adapt, right, and evolve and go with the changes, and being able to telegraph, where an industry is going and where technology is going, and you just you touch base on it through our conversation of going, you graduated from college and you had that stock market crash. You were a personal trainer, and so through this adapting through changes, how did you get into the business you're in now?
Well, while I was a trainer, I in Albuquerque, I went to the local healthcare delivery system and said, I'll work for you for free. Just, teach me healthcare administration. I'll run your errands for you. I'll do anything for free. So I would work at the gym in the morning and go work at the hospital for the afternoons for nothing. I did that for a number of months. And eventually that turned into a position, and I had the privilege of working under some great project managers who kind of taught me the trade, and I got to see a lot of good things and a lot of dysfunction, and particularly how new initiatives were rolled out across a large enterprise. There's all kinds of things that come up that don't get discussed where they need to be in the boardrooms. And so just having visibility up and down the chain, when you're deploying anything, you get to hear all sides, the decision makers at the top, middle management, all the way down to the frontline staff. You hear a lot of frustrations, a lot of miscommunications, a lot of non-communications where they need to happen. And so I got just immersed very quickly in Albuquerque for a number of years in kind of organizational life. And when we came down to Las Cruces about 8 years ago, I had the opportunity to work with some great folks in El Paso, developing software solutions for companies. So that was, yet another just important aspect of business life today, in these days, the technology cloud side. It's kind of been a strange road, but I've always been able to toggle between, the detail work and then zooming out and tying it to the big picture. I just feel like that is an essential skill for an organization, a leader, a team to have, because you can fall off the horse one of two ways. You can either kind of have that flavor of the month syndrome, where you're always chasing the latest, newest idea, and you can't really gain any momentum that way because everything's always in flux. And then on the other side, you can fall off the horse where you kind of have this tunnel vision. And, with manufacturing, with production industries, logistics, where things are very repetitive, there's lots of repetitive work, you can at times develop this tunnel vision where you're very efficient, but it's not strategic. And your ability to adapt to changes in the market is kind of underdeveloped. So So what I try to do is to come alongside leaders and teams and provide capabilities, build capabilities for them to account for both, both parts of reality. We got to be good at what we do. We got to be efficient, and we have to be able to adapt and be ready for change when it hits.
Awesome. So through this adapting and going from, working for companies and going and working for yourself. And one of the things that I found is how do you self-motivate? So I always like to ask this to my guests: what motivates you in your business?
Well, I grew up playing soccer. I'm a team player all the way through. I on a soccer team, my favorite team growing up watching was the French team of the 1998 World Cup. And I would watch tape of their games frequently as a teenager. And I loved watching. I mean, they would, if you ever go back and see any of their games, that was a special team with Zinedine Zidane and Thierry Henry. That was kind of the tournament where Thierry Henry was, became big. But the way that they moved as a single unit, these 11 guys on the field was incredible. They each player has a role to play, but no one can do it on their own. And so, where I find a lot of motivation is just, having a role to play on a larger team that's, where it's not all about the fullback or the forward. You can kind of get prima donna syndrome in different positions when you get a lot of publicity. I'm not that into that. I really enjoy, what motivates me is being a part of a team that's well functioning, that's scoring goals, and having fun doing it along the way. So that's a big part of what motivates, my approach to not just consulting, but life. I think we're designed for community and for purpose. So I try to create that wherever I go.
That is awesome. I love that, being able to see, like, it's almost where you're like-minded, you're a nexus, all moving together with the same goal in mind. I absolutely love that. And being able to work at a team, not just one individual section of that team, but the entire team coming together. So with your motivation in business, what motivates you in life?
Well, I'm a Christian, and Jesus is the reason for every season for me. And I love studying heaven, pondering heaven. Revelation 22 describes the New Jerusalem, where the kings of every nation will they'll bring the glory of all the nations into the New Jerusalem. And I think where that's significant for me is, just along the lines of where the scripture says he has prepared good works in advance for us to do. And so that's my prayer every day, is show me the things, Lord, that you have prepared in advance for me to do on this planet. And, I look at what's in my hands today, and I ask the Lord, what can you do with what you've put in my hands today? And part of that is helping build stronger teams, stronger organizations. So I'm doing my best to do that.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Okay. So we're in some places, we're still kind of, it's not so mandatory isolation now, but we had that in the past. And I looked at that going, it was an opportunity to complain or adapt and learn. And so I chose the learning. So I like to ask, did you learn something new in our time of isolation?
I learned a lot. It really shut down my business. I was in the middle of a project and everything got turned off. And yeah, I think what you said is exactly right. We have a choice. How do we respond to things we can't control? And so I put my computer away. I do most of my work remotely. Just put it away. There was nothing to do. Everyone's in quarantine. And I just looked at our yard and, started picking projects. How can I, a lot of it was intimidating, Carlos. I learned for the first time how to lay a flagstone porch. That was really complicated, and I made a lot of mistakes. I learned how to build a bridge out of wood, and so I would do it way differently next time I build a bridge. Again, like tons of rework the first time you do stuff. I learned how to, drywall and mud and do the baseboards in this little room that we had that was unfinished. It was just that kind of stuff, working with my hands. When you're in IT, when you're at the computer for most of the day, at least for me, I forget the importance of getting outside, getting sunburned, sweating all day, working with my hands, and being physical. So it was a good eye opener there for me, and just a good reminder, and I learned a lot through that.
That is awesome. Joe, you and I we're seeing eye to eye here. I look at things that people have built with their hands, and I could fix a car pretty good, but when I look at a home and I go, how do you get a baseboard off? And then I'm like, my father-in-law comes and brings over, the crowbar. I'm like, what? So props to you, sir, because that is awesome. I'm the same, right? I could take apart a computer, and not that I have training on it. I learned the motherboard. I learned the processors. I don't like doing it, but I can do it very easily. But when I look at these things going, wait, I'm supposed to build that? Or yeah, I completely understand. Yeah. So props to you, sir, for learning how to put away that computer, get hands-on. So, okay. So this is where I like to get a little bit geeky, because I am a geek, a professional geek. I collect comic books. I always like to say, if you could have one superpower, which one would it be?
Well, there's a few I would love to have, but I think flying, honestly. I would love to fly. Yeah.
Awesome. So with that, you are not afraid of heights.
Oh, I am. But if I can fly, then I think it would probably, fix that fear,
You will adapt and learn to live with that. Awesome, and grow from that. Okay. So the typical Las Cruces question, red or green?
Most of the time I get Christmas. If I had to pick one, I'd probably go green, but there's just some days you got to go red. So I usually can't decide, and I go Christmas.
Nice. Awesome. Actually that's been the answer for the most part, has been Christmas. So yeah, it has kind of blown my mind, because I'm so used to that tribalistic nature of humans going, it has to be one or the other. Christmas is a nice blend. I love that answer. Okay, so Joe, we've come to the end of our podcast, and so I always like to just put this out there. How can people find you? If somebody's watching this in Las Cruces and say, hey, I need your services, how do they find you?
Well, they can go to all this information is on my website at edifiersconsulting.com. My email is joseph@edifiersconsulting.com. I'm on LinkedIn. You can just look for Joseph Villanueva and Las Cruces or El Paso, and it should pop up. But yeah, I'm not a huge social media guy, so I'm not really there. But you can reach out on email or find me just by Googling or going to the website at Edifiers Consulting.
Awesome. Well, viewers, thank you so much for again watching another episode. And Joe, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and sharing what you're able to offer Las Cruces. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Carlos. I appreciate it.
Thanks. You guys just stay safe out there, and wash your hands. And thank you again for watching. You guys have a great day.